Next is a question from Roy Barrett. Hello Roy, are you alright? I'm a friend on Instagram. How are you going? Hello John, I've been a big fan ever since your Nevermind the Buzzcocks days. Who plays you in the Mondo Chalavek the movie? The movie? Well, that's a good question. I would have to say it's going to have to be someone who's good looking. And I would have to, well, at this point, you'd probably say Bruce Willis, because I kind of half look like him in a slight way. Good question. Funny question, Roy. But yes, I would have to say Bruce Willis. Thanks very much for that one, Roy. Steve Langdon. Hello, Steve, you all right? And Steve's question is, very impressed with your musical talents. Well, thanks very much. I have been doing it for a long time, and I haven't just went and recorded that. That's been the thing that I've been going to do for a long time. Well, ever since I picked up instruments, I've always thought I want to record myself. It took us a long time to find out how to do that. I would like to ask you, who are your musical influences and also the best live act you've ever seen? That's a great question. Musical influences I've talked a little bit about before in another question, but I would say if I had to think who was going to do it, definitely Glenn Danzig from the Misfits. His songwriting in the Misfits is amazing. Obviously moved into Sam Hain and Danzig, the band, and I did follow him all the way through his career. So I would have to say Glenn Danzig. Also, I would have to say bands like Kraftwerk really influenced us. I couldn't get enough of Kraftwerk. I can't really record stuff like Kraftwerk, although I can to a certain extent, but I haven't got all the stuff that they have. So definitely Kraftwerk. Weezer, because I like to play the guitar like the Weezer guitar, the kind of heavy downstroke. Another band I haven't talked about at all, but definitely the Ramones. The Ramones, the fact that they just do simple yet tuneful tunes. I'm always interested more, I do write lyrics, but I'm always more interested in the tunes of a song. If a song's got a brilliant tune, it just seems to jump into my ear and I think, wow. Actually, and getting back to another question that Lisa had asked about people now, I would say Sia. Now, she does do a lot of pop stuff, but if you look into Sia's albums from around about 2008 and 2010, they're absolutely brilliant. But I would say, yeah, so the likes of sort of like Weezer, Ramones, definitely Ramones. But it's funny because I can write a song that doesn't sound anything like any of them bands. It just depends if I'm in a certain mood. I think, I want to write something that sounds a bit like jazz, although I don't like jazz really. I'll try doing a jazz song. I've done a jazz song, I've done a reggae song, just one. Don't really like reggae, but I've done it because I fancy doing it. It's not very good, but it's good that you can break out the mold. If you listen to a Mondo Chalavek album, you'll hear a lot of different genres on that album, usually, unless you listen to an album that's purely that I just want to make a punk album, or one that's got a lot of keyboards in it. And the best live act you've seen, I've seen a lot of bands recently as well, and I'm going to go back to my thing that I was looking at to say bands that I've seen. I'll go through a few honourable mentions. My favourite band I've ever seen is the Misfits. I love the Misfits, and I just like the fact that I've actually seen the Misfits. I've talked to them, I've had my picture taken them, so that's brilliant. So Misfits will be top of the list. But other bands, I don't think it's the best band I've ever seen live, although it was one that was most in awe of the fact I was actually seeing the Misfits. There was a band, another band that was absolutely brilliant when I saw them. I've always liked their music, but they were just so, the fact I was just looking at them, I'm very starstruck when I watched bands, and I'm actually, when I'm looking at them, thinking that's the person I'm looking at, after all these years. I'm going to say the B-52s were amazing. They just were so brilliant, and the singer Kate Pearson, she was unbelievable. I couldn't take my eyes off her actually. The Ruttles were absolutely brilliant as well. The singer, who's now unfortunately passed, Neil Innes, he from Monty Python fame, he was just a super amazing, multi-talented musician, and the fact of what he could play, how he could sing, his words, the whole thing. It was a joy, that one. Another one as well, Bjorn Again, who were the ABBA tribute band. They were just unreal. It was like watching ABBA, and to watch it, the people in the crowds were going crazy for this Bjorn Again. And also as well, I would have to say, one of the ones that I got the most the metal sort of thing was Slayer. Slayer were just to see Slayer in the flesh was unreal. Now I think I talked about this before, the best one that you can go and see that have the best stage presence for just being the singer in the band called The Struts. He was just in fact, is it Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters say that the Struts are the best band that they have seen. Like Dave Grohl says the Struts is the best band that he's seen live. So that just shows you what they're all about. So check all these ones that I'm talking about. Go on your YouTube and just check them out because they were brilliant. But I have to say, my favourite gig is it the favourite gig I've been to? I'll just get this back again. Best live act I've seen. If I had to come down for one thing, I would have to say, and I had to be so. No, I've got it. The best live act I've ever seen, because they were so talented and good at the music, was Level 42. I've always been a fan of Level 42, but to see these people who are just at the height of the pinnacle of their talents. I mean, Mark King on the bass, you just can't believe what you're seeing with your own eyes. They were perfection. So yes, Level 42 are the best band I've ever seen. Not my favourite band, but they were just so professional. It was unreal, actually. I couldn't get my head around seeing people that were that talented. So Level 42. Thanks very much for that, Steve. Gary Turley's asked, did you get Total Recall and the Lady Killers box set? Now, that's a good question. I did think about it, and then it got sold out immediately, Gary. So what I thought of was, I'll go for the standard thing of Total Recall, even though I've got the Studio Canal old Blu-ray over there. And since I've heard that, I've heard the 4K does leave a little bit to be desired. Now, the box set is brilliant. I would have liked to get the box set. I did go online to buy it, and then it went up to about £65, which is a little bit too expensive for me. Plus, I heard that the 4K wasn't as good as it should be. I had a few issues, but I'll look into that. I might get that in a cheaper thing. And also the Lady Killers box sets. I haven't seen the Lady Killers box set. I do own the Blu-ray, but I would be interested in getting that one because I do think that film's amazing. If the Lady Killers Blu-ray is okay, but if they're doing a bit of if it's a Studio Canal release and they're doing a bit of an upgrade on it, then yes, I think I will be going for that one. So thanks very much for that one, Gary. Gary's been a subscriber of mine from day one, actually. So next one is from my brother-in-law, Davey Dark. And he is a good friend of mine, as well as his wife, Jilly Rocks the Metal. And we do have a lot of banter going on between each other. And he's a big fan of, obviously, music as well as his movies. So he's put, I can hear that strong punk influence in there. Love the trashy guitar noise that sounds a little bit like Jonesy. That'll be Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols. Well, funny enough, that's a good thing that you've picked up on that, because it is a punk one. I would say that sounds more like a sort of Nirvana type music, if I had to say any sort of definitive thing that was influenced by, a bit more like a Nirvana song, because there's a lot of it. If you listen to it, I'm a big fan of chords, even though I can't play that many. I can cheat, and that's the best way. I'm a big fan of dissonant chords, which makes the song sound a little bit. You've got to throw a few minor chords in there, which makes it just that little bit more interesting, a little bit more darker, and a little bit more off kilter. And there's a few in author, the song in here, there's a few definite, just a little bit few odd chords in there, and there's a song which I'm doing at the moment, which I've probably finished actually. It's called Imposter Syndrome, and that's full of weird chords, and the song sounds dead interesting in it. So I will probably try and do something on I'm going to do something on how to make a song. I might actually pick Imposter Syndrome on how to actually make this song from beginning to end, how I did it anyway, if it's interesting anybody. Yeah, so I usually record 3 guitar tracks and overlap them on each other, put one that way in the mix, one in that mix, and then one down the middle, and that's usually my guitar sound to make it sound a bit fuller. But that one has got 3 different guitars sounds on it, effects on it, so yes, there's quite, I can know what you mean about the trashiness on it. So my question to you, Brother Go, is what is the darkest film subject you have watched? Hope you are all well, buddy. Well, we are, and I hope you are too as well. Well, I'm going to say the darkest film, right? And I'm going to say, well, I didn't realise how dark it was going to be. I mean, you've obviously got films like Necromantic 2. Necromantic 2 is probably a bit more, a bit worse than Necromantic. I do quite like the Necromantic films for what they are, but I don't really like to get too much into like the dark side. I wouldn't think that genre would be a great genre I would like have loads of joy in, but I do appreciate them for what they are. So the subject, I would say that what I've watched and I didn't appreciate at all is the film, a Serbian film. Now that film for me, it broke a few barriers which I didn't care to go into, to watch. And when I realised, I'm not going to give any spoilers away if you want to see this film, I personally think it's I'm not going to say it's a bad film, but the way it went, I didn't like the way it went at all. And I was very much thinking to myself, this is a film, I knew I had to see the uncut film, because every time someone says there's an uncut version out there, I have got to go and see it. And I heard that this film was not getting released in the UK. So I thought, oh, I'll watch that. I was quite surprised at what I saw. I didn't like what I saw. And so I was going to say that's the most, and if you've seen the film, you know what I mean. I'm not going to really say what it's about, but I'm going to say a Serbian film is the one that was the darkest film, and I do not ever want to see that again. Even though I didn't really finish it, I got to the point where I knew what was going to happen, and I thought, this is off. Don't appreciate that type of stuff into the film. I do think that a lot of things that deal with, things like, like subjects like, you see in horror films, you've got a lot of things that deal with like dark subjects, and people who have been through dark times, and that's fair enough. There's a lot of films, even mainstream films, that have like dark elements in them, to do with, like horrible situations that people find themselves in. I don't really like too much of that stuff, if you know what I mean. You watch Necromantic 2 and I think it's all right, and that's probably the darkest subject you can imagine, but it's funny, without sort of going into any spoilers, that it's just something I just think that when you've seen Serbian film, you know what I mean, you don't really want to go down that alleyway, because to me it brings up too much stuff where you say that's just a bit of a step too far, if you know what I mean. So good question, that. And it's a one that's, it's funny because when I get into a film that I don't like, then it's gone. It's not as if I can put a film on, and if it's like, Cannibal Holocaust is really, really bad. The animal killing is like horrible. And I watched the cut on it, doesn't have the animal killing on, it's like cut out. Even though the animal killing's on it, and I have watched it a few times, I do know what's in it. I don't need to watch it again. So yeah, I would say probably as well. I'm not a fan of animal cruelty. That's across the board. Even when you're watching a film and you get to see 1,000 people getting killed, but one dog gets killed, then you kind of, the throat's going and everything. So yeah, it's a it's a tough thing to see, animal cruelty. So yeah, but great question, Davey. Getting the horns out from a good friend of mine, Robin, who has a channel, Broken Arrow, and I'm going to put a link down to that down below. He's got an acoustic. His channel's more like acoustic stuff. He's a really good musician, mind. He's a very good guitarist. If you're a fan of acoustic guitars, get yourself over to this channel, subscribe to him, because he's got some good stuff on there. I do watch his stuff, and we've had loads of chats about music and movies over the years on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that type of thing. So Robin asked, John, I've got a few questions for you. What is your favourite scene from The Exorcist and why? Well, The Exorcist is a great film. There's a lot of favourite scenes in there. I've got a few that spring straight to mind. The one I really like is when the mother is in the attic and the flame shoots up. I love that thing. I love the spider walk scene, even though some people don't like it. I think it's very creepy. But I think my favourite scene in the whole of The Exorcist would have to be, I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, is a tiny little creepy little scene in there where the priests are in the bedroom at night, and obviously Regan's on the bed and Father Karras and that, they're just walking on the bed, and as this demon is trying to sort of upset the people in the priests, obviously, in the bedroom, and when they look on the bed and there's Regan, and it goes back to one of the priests, and then when it goes back to the bed again, it's actually one of the priest's mother just sitting on the bed looking at her with light shining on her. And that, to me, it kind of freaked us out at the time, because I wasn't expecting it. I just thought, it's a really creepy little thing to do. And it's always stayed with us, with this part, that it's become my favourite scene in that film. And there's a lot more things that you can say about that film, but for me, that's the one that always I just love it. And it's just a couple of frames of a film in a great film, but that's my favourite scene in that movie, and I know that it's your favourite movie of all time actually. Do you remember when you first saw it? Yes, I do. I remember first seeing it, getting it on a imported from, I'm going to say, Denmark or something like that, by a friend of mine. Imported it, and I bought it off him. He called Kev. He sent it across to me, and I watched it, and I would say I saw it. This is I would say it was in the very late 80s when I first saw it. Obviously, I'd heard loads of hype about it, so I went into it thinking, as you do with some of them, this is going to be amazing, it's going to be great and all that. So when I watched it, I must admit that it did live up to its expectations with us. I did feel that the subject in it, and the sort of all the stuff that they put in it, especially with, it did live up to its hype for me. But I found it more, it wasn't like an exploitation film. I found it more like a serious film that just didn't. And imagine sitting in the cinema in 1973 and watching that. It was like nothing that went before. So to me, it was groundbreaking as well, and I thoroughly got it. Excuse me. And I thought, for me, that it was like Streets and Heads. It was like a thinking man's horror film. It wasn't an exploitation bit of trash, and I did really enjoy it. So I would say I saw it on that. I still got the Exorcist Den VHS copy of it. Still got it there, and it's still quite good. And I remember seeing it because I knew that I could see it. It's another thing, I could see it in perfect condition at that time on VHS, where most people couldn't see it, or it was on a 5th generation bootleg copy. How do you feel about the remake coming out next year? Remake in inverted commas. Next year, question mark. Well, you won't know at this point when's anything coming out. And do you think they'll do a 5th? Well, that one, how do you feel about a remake coming out next year? I don't know, and I'll tell you why. This film was made in 1973. It defines an era. It defines 1973. It defines something that you've got to transport yourself to the year of 1973 and think, what was people thinking of at that time. Sometimes I could see a film and say it was made in 1980, and it's a bit, you know, laughable now. But if I think myself, what was that like in 1980? And it could have been really shocking. The Shining is not laughable, obviously. It's a brilliant film, but a lot of people didn't get it in 1980, and it was a bit of a slow burn. In fact, people said it was just a bore fest, but far from it. Was it ahead of its time? Yes, it probably was. But if you just think about seeing that film in 1980 to what, and if you were into the film, what you could have got from it. And the same with the Exorcist in 1973. Well, put it this way. They've done a lot of sequels, they've done a lot of spin-offs, they've done a lot of cash-ins, they've done a lot of exploitation, you know, sort of blatant rip-offs of the film. And has any of them ever touched it? No. The film for me, although Exorcist 3 comes close, but The Exorcist for me is the pinnacle of that film. No one's ever bettered it. And I don't see how anybody, there's very few films that every remake that can do it with. I think it fitted in, and it was shocking at that time for that reason. The fact it's from 1973, it's breaking loads and loads of barriers that you would have never expected to see physically on the screen. No wonder it had a lot of problems about it. So for me, I don't think so. I personally don't think they will ever touch it again. So I wouldn't, by all means, do another version of an Exorcist type film, but just don't remake it. I don't think they should do it. I think that film is, as some of the films are, you know, the pinnacle of it. They did it. They can never do it. So don't go back. Just enjoy what you've got. And I know you must have watched, Robin, you must have watched The Exorcist about 1 billion times, and you're probably not sick of it at all. So, yeah, I'm going to ask you as well, what do you think about that? Because I'll be interested to know what you think about it. And do you think they'll do a 50th anniversary 4K edition in 2023? 1,000,000% yes. Warner Brothers are releasing a lot of their stuff on 4K. It's a Warner Brothers title, and it's begging to be released. Maybe the fact that it's going to be 2023 for its 50th anniversary is the fact that it's not been released yet. Because to me, if it wasn't coming up for an anniversary or just had one, they would have done one immediately. They would have done one now, because they know it's going to be a massive seller, of course. So yes, I do think 100,000% it would do, and I will be buying one as well. What are your thoughts on the upcoming releases from Arrow, American Werewolf and Demons 1 and 2? Well, if the Arrow Werewolf in London had been 4K, I would have bought it immediately. So I'm going to say it's great if you collect steelbooks. I personally don't, so I'm very happy with my special edition up there. But it looks good, but I think we've talked about this. There's a few parts of it, a few elements of that box set, the steelbook box set, don't look that good or that nice or that as good as the other box set was. Personally, I think we've talked about that as well. And Demons 1 and 2, that is like, it's just basically, as soon as you said it, I thought, right, that's an instant buy. In fact, to be honest, today, I'm going to buy it today. So there you go. Or I'm going to pre-order it, shall I say. So yeah, Demons 1 and 2 is an amazing film, although 2, not that good. I've got them on Blu-ray, but I do want them on 4K, because I do think the Blu-rays are good, but I would like to see how we can get them, how good they can get them. And it's Arrow as well. And it's about time that Arrow have released a proper 4K, i.e. a boutique label, deep cut horror film, as opposed to mainstream ones, which are a little bit, I know they're in sort of league with a lot of American companies, which is fair enough, but some of the ones that have released aren't really been things that have been associated with Arrow. But it's fair enough, they've got to make a living, of course they have. Also, Robin says, could you give my shop, Baphomet, a shout out? I stock occult and esoteric books. I also have a few other items such as Ouija boards, or Ouija boards. Is it Ouija? Ouija boards, t-shirts, beanie hats and face masks. I'm on Instagram at, and I'll put a link down to this below, okay, at Baphomet Books, and find me at www.baphometbooks.com or co.uk. P.S. The idea of your mumble track is very similar to how Metallica write their songs. That's 1,000,000% accurate. It's true. It's weird that, because I know what you're saying. I have heard mumble tracks of Metallica songs where James Hetfield is sort of singing what he thinks is going to be where the lyrics go, but he doesn't really sing them, like that one was on Author. And I'd done this a few times to show this to show my singer what I where I wanted them ish, and then he would go with it. So he usually, sometimes I would just give him a lyrics sheet and I would just give him the song. He'd put his headphones on. After 2 goes through, you'd say right, and he'd just sing it. And I've got some amazing versions of songs just from like literally just going it like that. But around about that time, I did hear Metallica doing. I have heard a few other ones. What other bands have I heard of doing like whistling tracks on it, and ones where they're sort of like humming through the songs? I think Buzzcocks do that a few times. But yeah, so it was dead funny, because at that time I did hear another thing from Metallica doing. I thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to have to sue Metallica, aren't I? But yes, that's a big thing. When I think of a mumble track, I always think of Metallica as well. So yes, excellent. So I'll leave a link down to baphometbooks.com down below. So go and check out. And if you, like I say, if you're into the sort of more occult things, I know that I've seen the stuff on Robin's Instagram page. If you're into that sort of thing where you do like beanie hats, like face masks as well, I do urge you to check his channel out. So thanks very much for that, Rob. Nice one. Okay, so thanks for watching. I've got one more video left, and then that'll be all the questions answered that you've asked me. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm trying to get some light here, and the light in here is atrocious, as you can see. So once again, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.